Traced to its roots, Puss in Boots is a 16th century Italian fairy tale about an anthropomorphic cat who scoundrels his way to power and wealth and helps his poor master land a princess bride. The most popular adaptation of the fairy tale was written by French author Charles Perrault in the 17th century. Since then, old Puss, named Perros by Perrault, seemingly after his own name, has been adapted by the Brothers Grimm, Disney, and even DreamWorks, where he was voiced by Antonio Banderas in Shrek 2. In 1969, famous Japanese writer and director Hayao Miyazaki adapted the story into a manga that became an animated feature film distributed by Toei, who then went on to make Perros their mascot. That leads us to today's game, the first only released on the Famicom, with the translated title Puss in Boots, An Adventure Around the World in 80 Days, that Toei published in 1986. The sequel that came to North America was titled Puss in Boots, Perros' Great Adventure, but was published by Electrobrain instead of Toei for some reason. Interestingly, the first game was exclusive to Japan and the second was exclusive to North America. So let's see what's up with the Puss in Boots games on the NES and Famicom. The subtitle for this one, An Adventure Around the World in 80 Days, takes obvious inspiration from the famous Jules Verne novel where the main character attempts to circumnavigate the globe in a hot air balloon in 80 days. So in the game, Perros is unsurprisingly going to be on tour to different locations around the world, although if he's trying to make his way around, then according to his route on the map, he's drunk. More directly than the Verne novel, though, this game is based on the third Puss in Boots movie called Puss in Boots Travels Around the World, which according to Wikipedia, absolutely killed it in Soviet Russia, and I guess flopped everywhere else. This one is simple in concept. You control Perros, and your goal is to traverse to the far right of the level until a, whoa, giant green sea dragon appears out of nowhere. This wasn't in the Jules Verne novel, was it? Maybe it was in the movie. I'll need to ask a Russian about that. You spam a few shots at the dragon while dodging his fireballs, and then it's off to the next stop on the tour. On your way through the level to fight the dragon, you'll need to stave off enemies by shooting them with whatever it is you're packing. I think you're just throwing swords, and I'd tell you for certain, but the manual is in Japanese, and guess who can't read that? You'll notice a timer at the top right that's rapidly counting up, and yeah, you're timed. The number to the right of the timer is the number of days you have left, and you have just 80 days to get around the world, or you die. It doesn't matter where you are in the game or how many lives you have left. If that top right number falls to 0, then you're done. Dead. Just a heap of fur inside a pair of boots. The time decreases the day count roughly 1 per minute, so you best hustle. You can pick up objects along the way, mostly boots, that can help you or hurt you. These are annoying because they all mostly just look like boots. There's no indication of what they could possibly do or whether or not they are good or bad. So naturally, I picked up everything. I have since learned that some of the boots give you more speed for a limited time, some help you jump higher, some increase your attack power, some make you invincible, and, although not a boot, you can find Perros' face for an extra life. Those are all good, but other items decrease the number of days you have remaining, and that's just no bueno. One even makes the screen black and white for a second. I was so taken aback by that I didn't notice if it boosted or detracted from any other particular ability. It's just odd. If you have played a lot of Famicom games in the past, you'll find this one has the usual gameplay flavor. There's a wee bit of jank to deal with, and everything is just a little less polished than it could be. Enemies spill in haphazardly from either end of the screen, or sometimes from beneath you, and they typically go out in one hit, but there's no feedback that your character has taken a hit. You'll have to keep an eye on the letter P in the upper right and track how many more hits from enemies you can take before losing a life. Once you lose all your lives, it's game over. There are no continues here. It's also difficult to make out what the game is trying to show you. Would you know you could fall through this and die? Where are the platforms through here? Oh wow, okay, I didn't even see that. Did you know you could fall through this particular bridge plank? And here, I defeated the dragon and then jumped with euphoric excitement and died midair for no reason. Was a hitbox still somewhere in there? I won't show it here, but there are some levels that commit war crime levels of screen flash, so if you're sensitive to that, steer clear of this one. It does have a few things going for it, namely the different settings. Each is unique and each level is its own thing. There's a submarine level and other vehicle levels that sprinkle some wrinkles into the mix. The stages feel a little too long though, and there are no checkpoints or passwords or any of that, so a death means restarting the entire level. There are 8 total levels here and no real story to speak of in the game, but if you're familiar with Puss in Boots lore already, you can plug in your own idea of what's going on here. I have no clue. I never encountered Shrek, if you're wondering, unless he's the big green-headed monster I've been killing after each stage. Lastly, although it doesn't really add much, you can play 2 players and take turns getting further into the game. Okay, let's see the Puss in Boots game in North America. Roughly 4 years later in North America, we were graced with Puss in Boots: Perros' Great Adventure. I think technically this is a heavily modified and localized port of the game we just covered, but it's different enough, title included, to be a sequel, so I'm treating it as such. This one is better in just about every way except for its level of challenge, to a point at least, but I'll get to that. For starters, you have a health bar now. Perro is weak and that thing goes down fast, but you won't have any issues dealing with enemies or obstacles. Like the first game, they just mosey in from either side of the screen and can be dealt with easily, typically before they get anywhere close to touching you. The P in the bottom left now represents your number of lives instead of number of hits, and on stages where Perro is walking, he has 3 different weapons: a gun, bombs, and a boomerang, and these have no ammo limits. Your choice for which to use will depend on the circumstance. Like the first game, there are different vehicular levels here. You cruise atop the ocean in a boat, beneath the ocean in some adorable green submarine, over the desert in a car, over the mountains in a plane, and through the clouds in a balloon. The vehicles only get 1 attack instead of 3, but that's no issue. The levels here are comparatively shorter to those in the first game and are designed much better overall, with more intuitive platforms and indications of what can and might hurt you. You get more than one type of boss too, like this mechanical frog. One issue is that while it's easier to know when you're taking damage now, the boss enemies don't always make it clear that you're making progress on them. For example, it took a bit to know that the frog only takes damage when his mouth is open. A little flash of a sprite would have been helpful, and you'll find doors all over the place. You can't enter a single one until London, when you have to enter the one door there. It's kind of symbolic because once you cross that threshold, things get weird. Up to this point in the game, which has felt like over an hour but was probably only 10 minutes because this game is terribly easy and boring for several stages, you've been conditioned to go from left to right on the screen and dodge or shoot large one-shot kill enemies. Now suddenly, there's precarious platforming, swooping bats that try to kill you while you're precariously platforming, disappearing platforms that add panic to the situation, conveyor belts with ceiling hazards, and then, surprise, a giant demon. Again, none of this is terribly difficult, and the game is forgiving enough that it won't matter anyway, but after 80% of the game has lulled you to sleep, this just feels rude. But you're not done. After a relaxing balloon ride, you enter a maze of doors where a wrong turn sends you back to the start. Again, it's more annoying than difficult, especially if you've been on cruise control since the submarine stage when you decided this game was made for 4-year-olds, and you probably thought the giant demon that took up most of the screen a second ago was the final boss anyway. Now there's a maze to figure out, fireballs to deftly outmaneuver, a flying snake mini-boss, and then comes what could be the weirdest and wildest difficulty spike I've ever encountered. The final boss here is... I don't even know. There's a wolf dressed as the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, and if he touches you, you die. There's a cat dressed as a clown that splits in 2 and ghosts around the screen super quickly. All this happens while Wolfbraham Lincoln fires on you with a gun, and if anything touches you, you're dead meat in a hurry. I only had luck by getting as far as possible to the right of the screen and spamming gunfire while trying to jump over the bullets held at me. This doesn't work every time, because if the ghosts get over there, they'll have their ghost way with you, and that's going to be a no bueno. Unless I'm doing something completely wrong, the spike in difficulty here on this boss is completely out of left field. Anyway, if you beat those guys, you win the game, so congrats, I guess. In the story, the clown cat is Count Gruamon, and he hates Perro because Perro was contracted to kill a mouse for him, but ended up being the mouse's friend, classic Perro. Count Gruamon got mad about this and recruited a wolf scientist to send Perro back through time, hence the different stages. Seems like Gruamon could have just had the mouse sent back in time the same way and left Perro out of this and saved us from the game. But anyway, Perro has to go back to present-day New York to kill these bad guys, so good luck. Hey, if nothing else, these games are interesting to look into. I wasn't even aware of the Famicom game until I started this, and really, unless you're a huge Puss in Boots fan for some reason, these aren't really worth anyone's time. I would almost recommend the NES one if you have a young gamer at home who finds most NES games a little too difficult, but having them do all that and fail at that stupid boss seems cruel. Neither game is particularly well made, although the vehicle sequences break it up a bit, and the day counter in the first one is unique, albeit unnecessary. Well, that's going to do it for Puss in Boots games on the NES and Famicom. As always, be on the lookout for the Wolf Ghost of Abraham Lincoln, and thanks for watching.